Hey there, Nick here. In this video, we're going to go over how to split up a string into multiple pieces in Bash using one or more characters as a delimiter in two different ways. We're going to start off by using IFS, which is the internal field separator, and we're also going to go over a Bash 4.2 feature, which is parameter expansion, where we're going to end up doing a find and replace on the variable so we can have a multi-character delimiter. So this is going to be a lot easier to take a look at when we actually take a look at some code. So let's start off with the IFS example first here. And let me just run this one here just so we can see the output. And then we'll go over the code here just to see how it works. Now, in a previous video about FFmpeg, I made a video around how you can very quickly create little smaller clip videos out of a bigger video. And we actually used IFS and, basically almost this exact line in that video. But I kind of glanced over it because I didn't want that whole video to be about IFS. So someone in the comments actually made a comment asking for a little bit more info around IFS, and I figured now would be a great time to make a video about it. But yeah, let's go over the use case here where, let's say that you have some user input. It could be coming from, a command line flag, or maybe in this case, like a variable. It doesn't really matter, but you've got this one string and it's all delimited by a specific character. It could be a comma, it could be a semicolon, it could be the letter J, like it could be whatever you want, right? The takeaway is you've got one character. And what we want to do is we want to split this thing on that character, using the character itself as a delimiter. This is a very common concept in many different programming languages. You just want to split on something, which is a string, and you get back an array, and then you can do whatever you want with the array. In this case, we're kind of just doing a for-in loop here, right? Basically for each fruit, what are we doing? We're echoing it out with the, just saying fruit and the fruit name itself, and then that's what we get back here. So that's how all of that works here. We're going to be focusing mostly on this line. And yeah, so let's say that we do have this example. And what we're doing here is we are taking this fruits variable, sending it in as input to the read command. And the read command is then going to define us a new array. We're going to name this array fruits array. And then we're also using the -r flag, because if we don't do that, then shell check is going to complain very loudly for us that we should do that. Otherwise, we're going to have some mangled backslashes here. So I'm not going to get into the super gory details about this one. I'll leave a link to this one in the description for this specific shell check wiki page if you want to get into it. But yeah, basically -r is something that you probably want to set like 99% of the time, just because, you want to be able to include backslashes in your input without any weird things happening. So let's put -r, and then by that, it's not going to, apply to us in this case, but it does apply in general, so good idea to set it. But yeah, that handles setting up the read command here, and this is going to, read this string in and then convert it into an array for us, and it's going to split that string up by, well, the IFS. And in this case, we're setting the IFS to be a comma, so that when we run the IFS command here, we get what we want. And what's really interesting too is, let's say that these were space characters instead, and we would run this now, then we would get sort of what we would expect here, which is, one element in the array, because, there's no comma in here to split by. So we just get back, what we expect. But if we put in, a comma and something else there, then we can see that we get two elements. Right now, it's splitting on the comma, and the first element is all this, and, the second element is what's after the comma. And that makes sense here. But if you actually have a space-separated string, then you actually don't even need to set IFS at all. And if you run this one, then we're going to get the same output as we did before when we were splitting on the comma here. And that is because by default, if you don't set IFS, it's going to be set for you by default, and it is going to automatically split on white space for you. So if you have a space or a tab character or a new line, it is going to do that for you out of the box. But, maybe in some cases you actually have a space in the thing that you want. So you can use a custom delimiter here, you can say comma like this. And I don't know, like I'm really brain farting on a fruit that has two words. Like, why can't I think of a fruit that has two words? This is really bad. But like, okay, like it's a cool fruit or something like that, right? Like, let's just say your fruit or whatever you're doing has an actual space in it. You want to be able to support that. So you don't want to have a space as a delimiter, because then that's going to be categorized as two different entries here. So in this case, we get what we want here by using this. And of course, again, you don't need to use a comma. You just need to use something that's unique in your string. And if that is your use case, then you are completely good to go. And I still can't think of a fruit with that has two words. Let us know in the comments below if you can actually know the English language and you can think of some fruits that have two words. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of them. But yeah, honestly though, yes. Takeaway here is if you are splitting on one character and it's just a normal, like reasonable character, then you are good to go. We're done. But let's say that you have a different use case now. Let's say that you want to do the same exact thing. However, you want this to be split on multiple characters. And I don't know, in this case, it's kind of silly, but let's just split on like the word orange here. Now, in most programming languages, if you were to split on orange in this example, then apple comma would be the first element and comma banana would be the second element because you're splitting on orange and that goes away and that's what we get. And that's certainly not what we get here when we run the same command here using IFS because it doesn't take this entire word as a one thing to split on. It does technically support being able to split on multiple characters. However, it is going to split on each character individually. Yeah, I don't want to get really deep into that because I honestly, I don't know why a lot of these are empty. If you know that, let us know in the comments below. The only takeaway I have here is if you need to split on multiple characters, IFS is not the way to go if the intent is you want apple comma and comma banana to be the second element. And that leads us into an alternative strategy here that we can take here, which is bash replace here. I just named this file whatever. Actually, let me open up the IFS one to the side here just so we can see both because they're basically the same script. At the very start, these are the same here, and this is also the same as well. The only difference here is this line on the bash one on the left, and we just took a look here at IFS on the right. But yeah, let's run this bash one here, and that is going to do that. Why? Oh, because I was screwing around the script right before the video, just testing something. Well, there's some foreshadowing basically, but yeah, this gives us what we actually want, right? We want to split on the word orange, and then we get apple comma and comma banana as the elements that we'd like. And what we're doing here in this line, we're just declaring the bash array, and we have our fruits variable, which is up here. And then we are using, and this is parameter expansion here, and we are doing, what are we doing? Well, we are doing basically a find and replace for all the occurrences in the string. We are replacing the word orange with a space character. So, I put orange there just because that matches here. And there is a way to, if you just wanted to do a find and replace on one instance instead of all of them, there's something that you can put in between these two dashes. I don't know that off the top of my head. I'll leave a little, tooltip or something in the video in case you're curious. But yeah, in this case, it's kind of interesting that we're just doing a find and replace, like we're turning our multi-line delimiter basically into one character, which is a space in this case, and then we get what we want. But we're not limited to just using multi-characters. We can use one character as well. And now if we actually run both of these commands here, well, let me bring this one back to comma, and then we can run this, and we get the same output for both, right? And there we go. Now, if this were the case where, you're splitting on one character, I sort of kind of prefer the one on the right because it's sort of, I don't know, it's a little bit more readable, a little bit more portable. In this case, you do need to have bash 4.2, although, at this point, when was the release date for that one, right? It was 2009, was it? I mentioned it in a different video, like from a couple months ago, but yeah, whatever it is, it's a long time ago. I know bash 3.2 is available on macOS by default, but you can always brew install bash to get a newer version. But yeah, let's go back to orange over here just to see this work the way that we wanted to with multi-lines. Cool. Now, what's interesting about this one though is we're actually using IFS behind the scenes here, but we're using it without defining it. So in this case, we're actually, replacing orange with a space character, but then IFS is, allowing us to, get this array here and have it split up all by the spaces. Because if we did something like, let's say, replacing it with a comma, and we were to run this, then, well, that's kind of strange. We're replacing the word orange with a comma, and then we just get back 3 commas in a row. That makes sense, right? That's basically what we got. But then there's no splitting done at all. So what's going on there? Well, if we were to do that, we would actually need to do IFS equals comma here. And this is not going to give us the same output as what we see here, by the way, because we're literally replacing the word orange with a comma. So we're going to end up with an empty item there. But if we run this now, then yeah, we just get the emptiness there, but we still have our 2 elements there. This is kind of a weird example here, but yeah, so let's say that if you wanted to replace orange with exclamation points here, and then we do the IFS on exclamation points, then we're going to get back what we actually expect, what we want, right? In this case, it's the same thing as not defining IFS and using a space here. So both of those things are going to do exactly the same thing here. If I rerun this, we can see things are working pretty nicely in this regard. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty good too, right? If you're dealing with multiple characters that you need to split on, there's maybe some footguns or edge cases that you may need to think about there. Again, if there's multiple characters in there, yeah, you just got to make sure that they're actually not a part of the things that you care about. In this case, splitting on orange is kind of silly because, that's what I want to get rid of. But yeah, you get the idea. But man, splitting strings in bash into an array so you can do something with them, it turns out it's actually a really hard problem because, whatever, these 2 use cases here, I would say are pretty pretty good. Like 95% of the time, maybe you're good to go, right? Doing it on one character, doing it on multiple, you've got a solution. But there are things that, well, you can really shoot yourself in the foot. And it's kind of interesting because, I Google a lot for things, right? And, how do you split a string into an array in Bash is like, sounds right up my alley on something I would Google. And you get the solution here where the top voted answer is like, yeah, you just use IFS here, you read into the array, blah, blah, blah. Very similar to the code that we had here. And, I've used this code a lot in the past. I, just haven't made videos on every single one of them, but it's good. But if you scroll down in this answer, and I'll leave a link to this one in the description, we get like the best answer in the world. You can see it also has 500 reputation here, but this guy just calls out and like says everybody's wrong, and he's right because, and we're not going to go over this whole thing because there's literally 8 wrong answers and then like sort of a right answer where he's like, well, you can do it this way, and leave that one as a reader exercise, but. Yeah, if you really go through all of this, wrong answer number 2, and this is very similar to what we were just doing, minus not setting setf there, but it's actually a really good post. There's other ways you can potentially do it here, very similar to number 2 here, blah, 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 4, 5, 6, 7, this is wrong, 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 that is wrong, this is wrong, that is wrong. And then, oh yeah, by the way, one thing, if you just want to make things pretty robust is, maybe you want to trim things out. Like for example, if you have leading spaces or trailing spaces in some of these, if you have a really robust script, like it should handle that. It shouldn't create separate elements from them. And yeah, I don't know, like this is really funny to me. Like his answer got so long that he actually ran out of space being able to post everything that he wanted to because it was over 30,000 characters long. And you start looking at things like this though, and you're just like, what's wrong with my life? Like, what am I getting myself into? If I need to go this far just to be able to split multi-characters without any, worrying about edge cases or something like that, then maybe it's a good idea to put Bash aside and maybe use Python or another scripting language. In fact, this is actually really funny too, because, someone here is like, that whole response, like, I'm ditching Bash for Python, or, well, I don't agree with this one at all. I know it's probably pretty small, but, he's saying like, this is exactly the kind of thing that will convince you to never code in Bash. I think that's going a little bit too far, but I mean, there is some truth to this solution because, yeah, you would think it's a very simple problem. I just split in multiple characters and not have to worry about globbing and line endings and trimming and all this other stuff and just make it work. No, it's actually pretty complicated. So the takeaway there is like, use this if it works for you. Use this if it works for you. If you need something more complicated, I don't know, maybe there's some crazy solution you can use with sed or awk. Like I haven't really gotten into super detail there. You can use Python instead. You can still call out to Python in a shell script, you could do whatever you need to do there. But yeah, with that said, let me know in the comments below, like what is your preferred way, assuming one of these use cases work for you. And with that said, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up because it really does help a lot. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next video.